Howdy, y'all. My name is Alice Azanovsky, and this is my presentation on ethanol as a biofuel. Let me pull it up real quick. A brief introduction to ethanol. So what is ethanol? Ethanol is an alcohol. We all commonly know it as grain alcohol or ethyl alcohol. It is used in the alcohol that we drink. It's made from plant matter, which is also called biomass. And it's present in over 98% of the gasoline currently sold in the United States. Where does biomass come from? So currently the process of producing ethanol uses nearly exclusively starches and sugars, as opposed to cellulose, which is the other form of biomass and the more common one. Corn in America is the leading crop and is also the primary source of biomass at 94% of ethanol production. In accordance with the Renewable Fuel Standard, corn ethanol production specifically is limited to 15 billion gallons a year. This makes sure that there's enough corn for livestock feed, human feed, and export. The biology involved. So ethanol is made through yeast fermentation, basically, just like bread, wine. It is the anaerobic pathway of cellular respiration. So the first step of cellular respiration is always glycolysis, which is where sugar is broken down into pyruvate, NADH, and ATP. When oxygen is not present, also known as anaerobic, the next step is fermentation. So pyruvate is broken down into ethanol and carbon dioxide. During ethanol production specifically, which happens in refineries, starchy plants are mixed with enzymes that break down starch into sugar. Then they add yeast and they ferment it, and the sugar is converted to ethanol by the yeast, and the ethanol is then filtered and used. So as opposed to gasoline, ethanol produces a lot less greenhouse gases and is better for the environment. For example, the example that I use is carbon monoxide, which is formed when there's not enough oxygen in the combustion reaction, and carbon binds to single oxygen. Carbon monoxide is very dangerous and not very good for the environment. Ethanol contains about a third of oxygen, adds more oxygen to the combustion process, and results in less carbon monoxide. And it also doesn't require the same production chemicals as gasoline does, many of which are harmful and carcinogenic and just overall very bad for us. This is a diagram of the greenhouse gas emissions for gasoline in grams of CO2 per megajoule of energy. For regular gasoline, it's 98.5. For ethanol, it's 53.3. And this does not take into account the CO2 absorbed by corn while the corn is growing. So the economic impact of ethanol. It's a very big industry in the US. In 2021, it produced over 73,000 direct jobs, over 300,000 indirect and induced jobs, and contributed $52 billion to the GDP, as well as almost $29 billion to the household income of our country. Development. So right now, ethanol is present in, I believe, 98% of the gasoline sold in our country. Many cars are even optimized for gasoline that is over half ethanol. New technology is making ethanol more efficient based on recent analysis. Energy requirements, electricity demand, and water use have all significantly fallen from 2001, which is a very big step in the right direction. Most of the research done in the field is made to optimize the process of ethanol production using cellulose instead of starch and sugar-rich materials. This would be important because it would reduce the cost of production and use less necessary sources that we don't use for other things. For example, we need corn for feeding our country, both the animals and the people. If we could make ethanol from compost, for example, it would be a lot better. The industry began in the 70s. In 2007, the Energy Independence and Security Act required U.S. production of ethanol to be at 36 billion barrels a year by this year. Last year, we only produced 17.5, which is about half of our goal. However, this is an industry that is expected to continue growing in the interest of global environmental concerns, rising gas prices, and just a general search for good renewable energy. Making the public aware of ethanol is not very important, I believe. The research and development of ethanol and ethanol use in our everyday life would be a lot more beneficial, because the public knowledge of the good of ethanol would not really do much if we don't have the technology to use it. I believe it's a very successful industry. It's good for everything. It's already widespread. The most important thing about it is it doesn't require significantly different machinery. We can use modern cars and fill them up with gasoline that has ethanol in it. So it's a big step towards renewable energy, but it's a transition, and it doesn't require us to completely restructure our lives. And it's already impacted hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives. Ideally, if there were no financial concerns, I would significantly fund research that would focus on developing a method of ethanol production that uses cellulose. Currently, this is being overshadowed by gasoline-related goals in the interest of money. But if making money was not a key objective, not a factor, I believe that putting significant efforts into this would be very important. It would be a very big step in the right direction. And now, even though we do have financial limitations, focusing on the production of ethanol from cellulose would be a huge advancement, both in the field and in the worldview of energy production. It would let us use compost and organic waste to fuel our cars, reduce the impact on the climate, and allow us to continue to advance our technology without harming the environment or running out of fuel. I hope this has been informative, and I hope you all found this interesting. Thanks, and Jacob.